Good evening and welcome to the Ramsey County 2nd District Court Forum. My name is Katie Goggins and I am a League-trained moderator and member. Today's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of St. Paul in partnership with the Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law, the Ramsey County Bar Association, and the St. Paul Neighborhood Network, and will last approximately 1 hour. We believe the success of our state depends on the values, knowledge, and commitment of our elected officials. Thus, it is essential for the public to better understand the views, opinions, and commitments of people running for elected office in Minnesota. It is this understanding that better equips voters with information to make informed voting decisions. We appreciate the candidates and the virtual audience members taking time to participate tonight or view it on demand later. This forum is being videoed by St. Paul Neighborhood Network for viewing by the public. Recording of the forum will appear on multiple platforms. Recording of this event, whether they be in person or a computer screen, may not be used without the express written approval of the League. Let me now introduce the candidates for Ramsey County 2nd District Court. There are 2 candidates for 1 position. In alphabetical order, Ngozi Akubike and Pat Diamond. The candidates have agreed to the forum rules. Each candidate will give a 2-minute introductory statement. The speaking order was determined randomly before the forum. The candidates will then have 90 seconds to answer questions and, if personally called out by name, an additional 30 seconds for a rebuttal. A timer will signal them when there is 15 seconds remaining and when their time is up. Candidates, when you see the stop card, you need to conclude. You can, of course, finish your sentence, but I will enforce this rule to make sure that we give the same amount of time to each of the candidates. At the end of the question periods, candidates will have 2 minutes for closing statements, which will be given in the reverse order from the opening statements. With that, we will start with the opening statements. Candidates, you each have 2 minutes for an opening statement. So our first statement is with Pat Diamond.
Thank you. I want to welcome the League, or want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and also for all the League has done over the many years to promote free and fair elections in our state, quite literally supporting our democracy. I want to also thank the Ramsey County Bar Association for its support of this forum, providing valuable information to voters as they make up their minds. In 2012, I, along with many others, applied to the Judicial Selection Commission to be a judge in Ramsey County. I was interviewed, my references were checked. The commission called lawyers who had been on the other side of cases from me that I had handled. They asked, "What's he like? Is he fair?" The commission forwarded my name to Governor Dayton, who appointed me to the Ramsey County District Court. In the 8 years since then, I have presided over thousands of cases. I've worked hard to protect the rights of all in each one of those cases. I've worked hard to be absolutely fair and to run a welcoming, patient, compassionate, and kind courtroom. I've been a leader with the court, serving as a lead judge in the Juvenile and Family Division, supporting families and children in crisis. I'm currently the lead judge in the treatment courts of Ramsey County, offering addiction and mental health treatment, housing stability, and other supports as an alternative to incarceration. We're at an important time for our court and our community. The pandemic presents great challenges, and our community's commitment to racial justice presents new opportunities. I have the experience, the temperament, and the commitment to meet these challenges and to seize these opportunities. I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Patrick Diamond. We now have Ngozi Akubike.
Thank you. I want to appreciate the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to participate in this process and to talk more about myself. I want to thank the Ramsey County Bar and the St. Paul Neighborhood Network and everyone who is participating at this time. I have the privilege of being a daughter to two parents and also a mother to two talented college-trained graduates. I am running because of my experience in serving the state of Minnesota, serving people with disabilities and those who are unable to provide, who are unable to pay their way, afford legal fees for adequate representation. It is a well-known fact that our justice system is regretfully flawed with disparities and unequal access with respect to certain demographics. And those are people based on their ethnic or socio-economic status. I have a sense of responsibility to this community. I believe that it's our responsibility to work for change where necessary. And there is need for change now. It's either I sit back and watch the process to continue or be part of the process to make it better. I have chosen to make it better by running. I hold 3 law degrees, 2 from another country and 1 from the United States, and I also hold a degree in public affairs. And I bring my experience, my personal and work experiences. And when you go to, I have experience in issues of people with disabilities and mental health. And my personal experience, I bring all those to bear as I seek for your vote for a judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ignosi Nkubege. Our first question will be, what distinguishes you as a candidate? Ngozi, you are first on this one. What distinguishes you as a candidate?
As I have indicated before, there are injustices in our legal system. And we have to look at the source. Currently, in Ramsey County particularly, we have the lack of diversity at the bench. And when I talk about diversity, it's not mainly based on race and gender. It includes the socio-economic background of those who are sitting on the bench. It also includes people who do not have life experiences. It includes people who are long-term career prosecutors. There are so many people who are from big law firms. But I have worked as a prosecutor. I have worked with the state, with the Attorney General's office. I have served the state in various capacities, both as an attorney, and I bring my experience, even as a homeless person, to bear. So with all those experiences, both life and legal experience, those are the things that distinguish me as a candidate in this race.
Thank you, Ngozi. Pat?
I have both experience and a track record of getting things done on the court to address the serious issues of inequality that plague both our court and our community. I've been committed to fairness. I've been committed to being patient and compassionate in court. I also have the intellect and the courage to make the changes that are need to be made. And I'm a hard worker. When I assumed leadership of the juvenile court, we knew it was past time to take a serious look at the way we were incarcerating our children, literally putting our children in prison. We talked to the community. We talked about how we could do better. We listened. We took action. We worked with the county board. We got funding for community services. And together, we reduced the incarceration rate of juveniles in Ramsey County by over 80%. That's some of the most dramatic juvenile justice reform that occurred in the country in the last half a decade, maybe decade. I can get things done because I've got the experience and the knowledge and the judgment to do them.
Thank you, Pat. The next question, What do you think are the 2 or 3 biggest challenges for the judicial administration in Ramsey County, and what would you do to address them? What do you think are the 2 or 3 biggest challenges for judicial administration in Ramsey County, and what would you do to address them? Ngozi?
One of the challenges that Ramsey County Judicial Administration have is lack of diversity, again, on the bench. When we look at the array of people who are on the bench, again, there are people who came from being long career prosecutors, who came from big law firm, who are not connected to the people, the community that we serve. Ramsey County deserves diversity on the bench, diversity in terms of gender, in terms of race. Currently, we do not have any Black woman on the bench. And that doesn't mean that there is no qualified Black woman on the bench that is supposed to be on the bench. But because of the process that is flawed, the process of selection of candidates, candidates are selected from a pool of attorneys who are either from the county attorney's office or who are from who are from county attorney's office or from big law firm. So there is that lack of diversity in the bench. Another one is the caseload that the judges have. Those are the 2 biggest issues, I believe, that we have.
Thank you, Ngozi. Pat?
I think the 2 biggest issues we have right now are, first of all, we are facing the challenges of the pandemic. We are facing the challenge of trying to operate our court, keeping people safe while respecting their rights of access and trying to be as absolutely fair as we possibly can. We've moved a number of hearings to holding them by remote means, but that means we need now more than ever to focus in on both the access to the court and the fairness of the court. Secondly, the second biggest challenge is racial inequality. We need to address it and continue to address it. Every judge has an obligation to work toward racial justice, no exceptions. I recognize my privilege. I've had many advantages. I've also worked hard to listen and learn and diversify the legal profession and the bench. I've been fortunate to have been mentored by many judges of color, and I've been fortunate enough to have mentored others. Our bench is made up of, we have 10 judges of color on our bench, 13 women on our bench serving as judges. They represent a wide diversity of viewpoint. They come from the public defender's office. They're solo practitioners, and they've worked hard to be accessible and fair.
Thank you, Pat. Next question. What is the most significant case you have worked on, and why was it significant? And this time, Pat will be first.
In 2007, I was honored to take a case and argue it in the United States Supreme Court. That's a rare thing. It involved a case that had started in post-conviction for a convicted child molester seeking the benefit of a new constitutional rule. The public defender on the case filed a petition to the Supreme Court, asked for it to be heard, and it was. The case was historically significant. It was an honor and a privilege to argue in that court. The other thing I'm proud of that case is that the lawyer on the other side has been a supporter and a friend ever since, showing that we treated each other fairly, we respected each other as advocates, and we supported each other through the process. We were both fierce advocates, but we came through as friends. And to this day, I think he did a wonderful job and great legal work.
Pat? Ngose?
I have worked on, it's difficult for me to choose from the cases I've worked on, but one that I would like to talk about is one of an orphan that was last year. The mom passed away. He had just graduated from college with no job. He was at the state fair, bought Martha's cookies for the mother, only to get home and find that the mother passed away. He was at a loss what to do. We tried to contact other lawyers to handle the probate for the mother's probate, but the fees were outrageous. So I called him and told him, look, I have not done this type of case before, but I will learn. And I did learn and handled the case for him. Unfortunately, when we went before the judge to ask for informal papyrus for the fees to be waived, it was denied. And that's one of the things that we need to realize, because if someone had come from a background where they knew it's difficult for somebody to afford, it's possible for someone not to afford legal fees or filing fees, the person would have granted that informal papyrus. But through that process, I worked with him, and he wrote a note to me and said that I gave him a new appreciation of the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngose. Next question. If elected judge, what do you see as your responsibilities to the community? If elected judge, what do you see as your responsibilities to the community? Ngose?
If elected, one of the responsibilities is to be fair, to be impartial. And that's one of the things that that is critical in order to build the confidence of the public in our judicial system. To be a fair judge, someone who can dispense justice without fear or favor. And that's why it's critical not to appreciate the fact that in this state, it's a non-partisan race. However, even though it is non-partisan, you see some of the political interjection into the race, and which is not right. And so one of the critical things I will do is to ensure fairness. And fairness begins with equal access to all. Access, even during this COVID, access for those who are poor, who are unable to afford legal services, access for those who are able to afford the legal services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngose. Pat?
I think first and foremost, the judge's responsibility to the community are to handle each and every case that comes before him or her in as fair and impartial a way as possible. I think we also have an obligation to address the inequality, racial inequality in particular, that exists in our community and in our courts. I've worked very hard to do that. For example, when I was lead judge in the Juvenile Family Division, I worked to give real meaning to the Indian Child Welfare Act. I established a calendar of cases limited to those cases so that we could rearrange the courtroom to be more respectful, more fair, to provide advocacy, to address the removal of children from homes, and to get to bring everyone together, including the tribes, to do better on those cases. We have a responsibility to the community to address those inequalities. Finally, I think we need to address the courtroom environment. Our courtroom and our courthouses are designed to project authority, yet many people who come before the court have experienced all kinds of disrespect and trauma by that very authority. We need to rearrange, we need to rethink how our courtrooms and our courthouses are structured and function in order to address that issue.
Thank you. Ngose? We're on to the next question. I apologize. The Ramsey County Court mission statement identifies a goal in carrying out the mission is to be fiscally responsible. What does that mean to you? Pat?
That means that we need to be hardworking, we need to be fair, we need to be accountable to the public, we need to be transparent in terms of how we're spending our money, why we're spending our money, and how we're doing with the funds that we spend. We need to be accountable also for the results for those funds expended. That doesn't mean that we create some kind of assembly line justice. We need to be patient. We need to take the time to do every case and be fair in every single case, to run our courts with kindness, respect, and compassion.
Thank you, Pat. Ngose?
To me, fiscal responsibility means making sure at the beginning of the fiscal year that we have set goals, we have budgets, goals set apart for and what we need to do with the money that we have. It means accountability, that we give account of how we have used the money, the time, the hours that we have spent on cases. To me also, it extends to making sure that our services are accessible to people, especially people with disabilities. And that's where we make sure that our buildings are accessible. The services, online services, technology are accessible to people with disabilities, because those things involve money. And most of the time, entities try to shy away from taking responsibility of those issues. It means making sure that our workers are putting in the hours for which they claim that they are working. It means at the end of the day, we give an account to the community what we have done with the tax dollars that they have paid.
Thank you, Ngose. The Ramsey County Court mission statement also identifies a goal to anticipate trends and promote innovation. How do you plan to do that? Ngose?
We live in a time of technology, a time that the technology is ever changing. And that's where, especially in this COVID, this is a perfect example of where innovation comes in, where hearings are done via other means other than being present in the courtroom. So those are the type of innovations that we are talking about. Keeping ourselves abreast of the technology changes so that the court and the courtrooms are not lacking behind when it comes to technology. That's what it means to me.
Pat?
I think we need to use technology appropriately, but we need to understand that being in court is a people-driven business. This is what we do. We serve people. We deal with real cases involving real people with real consequences. For example, when I was involved in starting the Veterans Treatment Court, the first in the state, we looked at the trends. We looked at how we could serve those veterans better, how we could offer them an alternative to incarceration, using the very veteran services that were available to them as vets, having served our country, using their access to addiction treatment and mental health treatment and the specialization of the VA to offer them an alternative to incarceration and a path to a better life. It's not just about crunching numbers. The treatment courts are a perfect example of innovation, where we increase the fairness of the courts. We give people the opportunity to change their lives around and to make a dramatic difference while serving public safety.
Thank you, Pat. What is the Second Judicial Court currently doing to promote equal access to justice that you believe is important to continue? Pat?
We need to continue to work to make sure, particularly in this pandemic, that everyone has access to the means to be participant in the court itself. So for example, in the treatment courts that I lead, by late March, we were doing remote hearings. We were reaching out to our court participants. We were meeting them where they were at. We worked with the community-based treatment providers and the mental health providers to piggyback on their technology that they were providing their clients. We managed to get the treatment court participants onto Zoom, get to them with a message of support. Fighting these diseases of isolation by reaching out, using the technology to reach out from the court and connect with them and to be there for them and be supportive in the life changes that they were trying to make.
Thank you, Pat. Ngozi?
I appreciate there's something that the Chief Justice introduced, and that's helping people who are pro se, making sure that there are paralegals who will help them, assist them in the process of filing their papers. I think that's a big step in ensuring that people at least have equal access to justice. And another thing the county is doing as well is ensuring that the website is accessible to everyone. And that is the make sure that there is, if you are using Chrome or if you are using Firefox or Safari, there is an alternative for someone. If you need document in Word or PDF, there is you are able to access the forms that the county has online. Those are some of the things that I know the county is doing to make sure that we have equal access to justice. And I am particularly particular about issues of people with disability because it gives them the opportunity to participate in the process in spite of their disabilities. So I appreciate what the court is currently doing, and that doesn't mean there is no room for improvement. There is always room for improvement. Thank you.
That actually brings us to our next question. What should the 2nd Judicial Court District be doing differently to better promote equal access to justice? Ngozi?
The 2nd Judicial District can do a lot in promoting better access to justice. One is by either appointing or electing judges who are representative of the community that we serve, judges who can relate to the needs of the people, judges who are compassionate, judges who are not there to serve special interest. Ramsey County can do something, another thing to promote equal access by ensuring that at times there are people who, even though they are not below the poverty level, but their income is not as much as for them to afford the legal filing fees that are required. Those are the people those are the people that I serve currently because they are falling away from the group that are below poverty level. And as a result, they don't have that equal access. At times, they will decide to forego their legal needs because they don't have the money to afford legal fees. And also, the court can also increase the funding to legal aid organizations as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngozi. Pat?
You know, this isn't just a matter of access in terms of filing paperwork. This is a matter of making sure that people are represented well and have their voices heard. For example, in the child protection area, there's an organization called Children's Law Center that does amazing work representing children, making sure that the smallest voice in the courtroom is the loudest voice. We need to keep looking, keep working with organizations like that. When I was a lead judge in in the juvenile family division, we worked to make sure that children had access to the court, that they had attorneys and real representation. The real issues were brought forth. When I handle order for protection cases and domestic abuse, harassment, and harassment and restraining order cases, you've got to slow down as a judge. You've got to work with people where they're at. Make sure they have an advocate if that's appropriate, and work with them. Be patient. Make sure that their actual claim is ferreted out and heard in the courtroom itself. That's a huge part of access. So we need to work with others, and we also need to work on ourselves to make sure that we pay attention, bring those cases forward, to truly understand them, and to make sure that those people who aren't represented have access to justice.
Thank you, Pat. What is the Second Judicial District Court doing to restore trust in the justice system that you believe is important to continue? Pat?
We are working on a number of issues relating to racial equity. It's critical that we continue to work on those. We are reforming our bail system, looking carefully at who's going to jail and why, trying to make sure that we're not jailing people who don't need to be there, that we're not interfering with their access to employment, that we're not interfering with their ability to take care of their family, to receive the services that they need. So we're working on bail reform. We're working as well on our courthouse environment itself. Like I said before, trying to improve and bring people along, meet people where they're at, make our courthouses and our courtrooms more welcoming and more fair.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Ngose? Question was, what is the Second Judicial Court doing to restore trust in justice system that you believe it is important to continue?
Restorative justice is one of the things that I think the court is doing, but should do more often in appropriate cases. And that gives people the opportunity. It recognizes that there are some people that will need a second chance, and gives them the opportunity of having that second chance. But there are much more room for improvement. And I say this because the racial inequities that we've been talking about this even before I was born. And we are still talking about it. And it's about time that we make the necessary changes, real changes, so that we can have a restoration of confidence of the community in our justice system.
Thank you, Ngose. What should the Second District Court be doing differently to restore trust in the justice system for all participants? Ngose?
The Second Judicial District can elect more or appoint more judges that are representative of the community that we serve, and that's where I come in. The Second Judicial District can have a dialogue with the community, have educational program for the community, educate the community about the process, the legal process, because at times people don't understand the legal process, and they look at it, when they look at the outcome is different from what their perception of what justice is, and make the rules less cumbersome for the pro se people, because we always have people who are unable to afford legal fees. Make the rules less cumbersome, make the process less cumbersome for those individuals so that they can also participate on an equal level with every other person. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngozi. Pat?
We need to make our courthouses and our courtrooms more welcoming. We need to be transparent. We need to explain to people what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. We need to make sure that we're accessible, that people understand where their court proceedings are going to be held, that we do notices, that we welcome people to the courthouse in their own language. We have all kinds of languages spoken in Ramsey County. We need to welcome people into our courthouse. We need to explain to them in their own language. We need to make sure that interpreters are available and available on time and with high quality. We need to do the kind of work that I've been doing as the lead judge in the Juvenile Family Division and the treatment courts for a long time. We need to make it clear that we're about treating people fairly, that we're truly listening to what people have to say, that we're supporting bringing the community together to deal with the issues that come to the court. They're important issues. We deal with them all the time. We deal with addiction. We deal with mental health. We need to build those community partnerships so that we can be fair and understand, people can understand what the courts are doing, but the courts understand what the community is doing, and we can work in tandem together.
Thank you, Pat. Any additional thoughts on how the 2nd Judicial District Court should be addressing the significant racial disparities in outcomes that plague our community and the justice system?
That one is a huge one, and it's been there consistently for ages. And each time we cry out, yet nothing is done. But the time is now to make the change. And what we are asking for is real change. Let's elect people who have real life experience, judges who are humane, judges who are compassionate, judges who know what people are going through, judges who have been there and know what it means to live from paycheck to paycheck, and who also know what it means to have more than enough to give to people. Judges who are engaged in the community that we serve. We need a dialogue, an honest dialogue. We need to get the police involved. We need to get the county attorneys involved, the public defenders involved, community engagement, people, nonprofit organization. Let us have an honest dialogue and address this issue. Most of the time we shy away from addressing issues of race, but it's not to our benefit. But it's time for us to begin to have that honest dialogue, honest discussion, so that we can make the real change that our community deserves.
Thank you, Ngozi. Pat?
Fighting for racial justice as a judge requires a thoughtful vision to see and understand the discriminatory practices and a courageous voice to name them and to convince others, both in our community and in our courts, to work to put something better in place. We must understand our own privileges and bias and see the racial disparities. We need to reframe our approaches. We've done this. I've been involved in it. In the juvenile court, when we dramatically reduced the number of juveniles in prison, in custody, we worked with the community. We listened to what they were saying. We worked to make sure that the inhumane practices going on toward those juveniles stopped and that we treated them in the community. And let's also be quite clear with everyone in our community. that racial justice and public safety are not different things. There are all kinds of people out there who seem to want to say that one diminishes the other, when in fact the exact opposite is true. We will not have public safety until we address the significant racial disparities in our court system and in our community.
Thank you, Pat. I'm going to take a little different type of question next. Please share the role model that inspired you to want to serve on the bench. Pat?
I can't say just one, but certainly I worked for a judge on the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals named Gerald Haney. He fought, landed at Normandy on D-Day, came back and served on the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. While I was working for him, we worked on the St. Louis and Kansas City school desegregation cases. He was a passionate advocate for people who lacked a voice, for the underprivileged. He taught me that the law is meant to work to protect people's rights. And that's what I've done. He inspired me to understand that our community, the success of our community, isn't going to be measured, mustn't be measured by the technological achievements or the amount of wealth that we amass. It's to be measured by how we learn to get along with each other, and that the courts, at their best, are central in that process. When the courts are functioning well, we bring out the best. We lead to the best in our community in terms of learning how to get along with each other as people in a community.
Thank you, Pat. Ngose?
There are a number of them. The late Justice Donald P. Lay, Toussaint, Edward Toussaint, and Anderson. And they all, in their own individual respect, taught me a number of things. One, be prepared as an attorney, as a judge. When you go in there as a judge, you have to know your case. You have to know what the case is about, because the attorneys, they know when a judge is not prepared. They taught me, they challenged me out of my comfort zone, to move out of my comfort zone, to do something that I couldn't ordinarily do or think about doing. They also challenged me to look at every individual and know that there is a story behind every person. To look at people as human beings and know there is a story behind everybody. And when we do that, that there is an outcome, a humane outcome that comes in terms of justice, that the justice that comes out of that is usually different and humane.
Thank you, Ngose. Next question. What do you see as the biggest strength or asset of the Second Judicial Court? And Pat, we have you first.
We have a group of judges right now who are diverse, who have come from all kinds of different backgrounds, who are talented, who are hardworking, who listen to each other, and who are absolutely committed to racial equality and fairness in our court system. I think that's a tremendous asset. We also have a large number of very, very dedicated employees in the Second District who understand that people do come to court. They do bring their stories with them, and that every single one of those stories deserves the utmost in care and respect. that's a tremendous asset as well.
Thank you, Pat. Ngose?
One of the assets that Ramsey County administration has is the technology, the improvement that has been done in addition to the personnel, the human capital. In addition to the human capital, there's the technology that people are able to file cases online, most of the time with little or no difficulty. That's one of the assets. Another one is engaging the paralegals, as I have said before, engaging the paralegals to assist people in the process of filing their cases, because it can be a daunting task for someone who is not familiar or with the legal process. That's one of the assets I know also that Ramsey County has. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngose. If we were to talk to you in 5 years' time, what would be the accomplishment that you would be most proud of from having served on the Second Judicial District Court in that time period? Ngose?
Oh, okay. Yes, for me, it will be reducing the racial disparities on the bench, as well as reducing unequal access, making sure that everyone has equal access to justice. And that includes being able to file your papers. If you're unable to afford legal fees, then let the fees be waived. Being able to have an attorney that can help someone through the process. Making sure that the legal aids that are available are funded and they are staffed as well. Some of them are not staffed enough to handle all the array of cases. Another thing is some of them, there are certain cases that they are not able to handle that is outside their purview. Let us expand the network so that people who are unable to afford attorneys can have access to justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngose. Pat?
5 years from now, I want to make sure that every single member of our community looks at the court in Ramsey County and believes that that court is responsive to the community, accessible to all, protects the rights of every single person who comes before the court, and is absolutely fair, that the racial disparities that have been plaguing our court for so long have been addressed, and addressed transparently and to the satisfaction of our community, of all of our community, not just some of it. That we understand that our community, our court has led the way to help the community understand that that is the key to public safety.
Thank you, Pat. We'll now move to closing statements. Those closing statements will be given in the reverse order from the opening statements. Please remember you have 2 minutes to conclude your remarks. First, we have Ngose.
I hope you've been able to see from today's discussion that I'm passionate about helping people understand and appreciate the law. To many, the law is not always what people hope it will be. This is when people feel the justice system is not fair in terms of disparities in outcome and unequal access. I hope through my race to go beyond advocating for and representing clients to bring in changes to the system, changes I believe are necessary to restore the public's confidence in our system, such that one can confidently approach the Lady Justice, knowing that justice is not influenced by a special group, but they will have their own fair shake. My decision to run is based on what I have seen firsthand representing people who are unable to afford legal fees and want to improve the system and can effectively bring the positive change through the bench. This can be done through communication and collaboration with different sectors of the justice system. I just can't sit by and not take action. I hope I can count on your vote. I can be the judge that Ramsey County needs now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngozi Akugbibe. Next, we have Pat.
Going forward, our courts and our community more broadly faces great challenges, but also great opportunities. The pandemic has challenged the variability of our courts to operate safely while protecting the rights of all. We have moved to holding hearings remotely whenever possible. But now, more than ever, we must remain committed to equal access and to fairness for all. At the same time, our community seems to be more willing than ever before in my lifetime to address racial inequalities. This presents an opportunity to work together with the community, with the courts, to make progress on fairness issues and broader issues in our community. I believe I have the experience and the commitment to meet the challenges and to seize those opportunities, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Pat Diamond. I would like to remind the viewing audience that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not necessarily those of the sponsoring organizations. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, the Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law, the Ramsey County Bar Association, and the St. Paul Neighborhood Network, I would like to acknowledge and thank the candidates who are serving their community by their willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for office. I would also like to thank the audience for watching your candidates discuss issues that are important to our community. This forum has been video recorded by the St. Paul Neighborhood Network for viewing by the public. Recording of the forum will appear on multiple platforms. Recordings of this event, whether they be in person or of a computer screen, may not be used without express written approval by the League. Every vote counts. This year, Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You also have the option of early voting or voting by mail. For any questions on voting, go to the Ramsey County website, the Election and Voting section. Please remember to vote. Thank you and good night.